everybody. Welcome to Model Building Start to Finish. Once again, this is John with
Dan.
We're looking at this Southern Pacific boxcar that we've been working on for the past few weeks. And I think you promised this week you were going to do some photo etched parts.
Right. I'm going to put on some aftermarket parts rather than using the Roofwalk that came with the kit, which is just basically this solid plastic thing.
Yeah.
This represents a wood Roofwalk, and this car should have a metal Roofwalk.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use a Plano part instead, and I'm using Plano kit number 192, which is a 40-foot boxcar Roofwalk with the U.S. gypsum diamond pattern, which according to my research is what this car should have. Now, if you've been following these series, you'll remember me saying that this car is not 100% authentic.
Right.
But I'm still trying to use parts that are as authentic as possible.
Yeah. It needs to be a plausible model.
Right. So what you get when you get the Plano kit is the Roofwalk itself, then some supports for the little pieces that extend toward the ladders.
Right.
And then those little pieces. And then also a brake platform, Roofwalk end supports, and a drilling jig.
Okay.
Now, I don't completely follow the Plano instructions, so I'll explain that as I go. But the first thing you have to do is to cut out the parts off the little frets that they come on. I'm using these special nippers, which are made expressly for doing this job. And so I'm just going to cut out some of the excess metal.
That looks like your sprue cutter.
Kind of, but these are made to go through photo etched metal, so they're a little stronger.
Yeah.
I like to cut away some of the excess first so that I can reach the parts I need to cut. Sometimes I save these little brass pieces too, because you never know what you can make out of them later.
You mean like MacGyver?
No, I mean little detail parts. Like this could become the support for something.
Yeah.
You know, if I was going to make some little antenna for the top of a diesel or something, you know, potentially.
Could even be like a little pipe coming out of an air compressor or something.
Yeah, well, it's flat, so it doesn't look much like a pipe, but
I couldn't tell from on the camera.
Okay.
It looked like a round piece.
So anyway, now I'll cut this out. I need to nip off where it gets thin here. So I'll do that. This is a lot easier than doing this some other way. And then cut the other end.
It's a lot of cutting.
Yeah.
You build so many models, you might get a repetitive use injury.
Then I can use a file and just clean it up a little bit. So this other part is, I think, stainless steel. So, but it pretty much cuts the same way. It's a little bit tougher than the brass, of course.
Yeah, I wonder why they would use steel for one part and brass for the other part. That seems a little strange.
I'm not sure. Sometimes these things kind of twist and they don't go through straight. There. That makes it a little harder to cut.
Is it a matter of it being dull or?
No, these are fairly new cutters. I don't think they're dull. Whoa. So I'll just flew across the room. So, and then when you get down to it, I just try to trim as close as possible so I have less filing to do. Also try to, if possible, not bend the parts because you don't want them to be all screwed up.
Yeah, that's a bonus.
Yeah. Plano actually recommends that these supports, you can see there's some thin extensions on the ends.
All right.
Go into holes that you drill in the boxcar. However, I found that that's really fussy to do and kind of hard to get right. I found it works just as well just to glue this part on.
Oh, all right.
So I don't bother drilling holes. And I'll just nip those off. And I just won't bother with the drill template at all.
Kind of makes you wonder why they design it or tell you to do it that way.
Well, maybe some people would prefer it that way. I don't know. But at least for me, it's worked better to just not bother with that.
Is there an advantage to using the drill method? I mean, would it be more stable or what?
Potentially, yeah, it would be a little more stable. But I haven't really found that that's much of a problem once the car's all assembled.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm talking about, these little narrow parts right here, the little prongs.
Yeah, it's so small.
Yeah, I'm just going to nip those off.
You probably could just as easily file them, couldn't you?
It's a little delicate, and also these things are scored to be bent, and you might damage it. So it's kind of the same idea with the brake platform. This has little prongs that are supposed to be put into holes in the car. However, our car already has a bracket on it.
All right.
So it's not really necessary to have these prongs.
Oh, what do you just set it on the bracket and then glue it to
just glue it right to the bracket, and
Okay.
it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So I'm going to cut all this stuff off.
Yeah, these parts are so small. You need to be careful not to lose them.
Yeah.
I guess working on a black surface like this helps when you're using, or I guess working with stainless steel or brass because it's kind of shiny.
Yeah. The other thing I need to do is, since the brake chain is already on the car,
Oh, I think I know.
if you can see on this part, there's a little hole for the brake chain. However, there's also a little thin piece stretching across the back.
Uh-huh.
I guess the idea is the brake chain would go through that, but since the brake chain's already on the car, that's really not possible. So I need to cut that little piece out in the back there.
Yeah. Then the chain just goes over the chain, basically.
Basically, yeah. And you'll never see the difference, so I think it'll work fine. So now I'm going to glue the brake platform to the bracket, just using a little bit of CA glue.
Wait, you're using the brass wire trick?
Yeah, I'm using it as an applicator just to
Right.
avoid getting too much glue on there.
Yeah, the end of the car being black is really killing the camera over here. You can't see anything without opening up the iris a bit, and then you put your hand in the picture, and it's a big white blob.
Oh. Anyway, I'll paint that black later, but that's all we need to do for now. So the ends of these supports need to be bent down, and I like to do this before I paint them, because if you try to do it after you've painted them, sometimes it makes the paint flake off.
Yeah.
So I just grab them with some pliers. I try to get it so that the edge of the plier is even with this lower piece right here.
Yeah, it needs to be straight across, huh?
Right. And then I just bend each prong down. It's brass, so it's fairly easy to bend.
Yep. Looks good.
And the other thing you have to do on the other end, same, grip this part right here and just make a slight downward bend, very slight. Okay, so then I'll take a piece of blue painter's tape and I'll just kind of maybe tape it like that. That way all but this little piece that's underneath, and this is the bottom, down here is the bottom, this is the top.
Uh-huh.
So that little thing is going to be under the roof walk anyway, it's not going to really show.
Right.
So this will allow me to paint most of the piece with an airbrush, which I'll do later. So this is the support bracket for the end of the roof walk.
All right.
It glues to the end of the box car. Kind of forms a little angle brace between the end of the roof walk and the end of the box car.
Right.
These things have some, it's probably hard to see on camera, but they have some little score marks running across in two places.
Mm-hmm. Is that for bending? Or?
Yeah, and these have to be bent. And the important thing to remember about these is don't bend them more than once.
Oh, otherwise it'll just pop off, huh?
It'll snap. Yeah. So you want to take the pliers and grip them right along the score mark and then bend at a 45-degree angle, basically.
And this, are you doing them both at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just going to take it and bend it about like that. And then you got to do the same thing on the other end. There's another set of score marks on this end. So just take it like this. And you want to make sure you bend them in the same direction.
Oh, otherwise you'll have it up on one side and down on the other side.
Right.
That would be totally lame.
Yeah, and you can't bend it backwards because if you do that, you'll break it. So,
yeah, if you bend it the wrong way, you might as well just throw it away.
Right. So when you're done, it should, I don't know if you can see that edge on.
Uh-huh.
It should look kind of like that.
Yeah, it's almost like an N shape or something, upside down U.
Yeah. So I've now airbrushed these parts First with some primer and then with a silver color that is a pretty good match for the boxcar.
Right on.
Now these little end brackets will probably have to get brush painted black later after they're put on. But I'll touch up that at the same time I touch up the little grab irons and the brake platform on the car. So the sequence to put this on is basically Roofwalk first, and it's going to go right here. Just going to glue it to the supports that are already on the car.
Right. I think you mentioned that before.
Right. However, before I do that, it's a lot easier to weather the roof of the car with the Roofwalk off.
Oh, yeah, because you have to get your stuff underneath it in order to weather under it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I want to do first is spray the roof with some dull coat and then do a little work with some powders to at least give it a little bit of weathering on the roof before I put the Roofwalk on.
All right.
All right. So I've got some dark rust colored powder, and now that I've dull coated the roof, it should stick. So I'm just going to work that in.
Yeah, it's probably important to mention that too, because if you don't spray the dull coat on the roof, this stuff will just kind of slide right off, right?
Yeah, it doesn't really work too well on a shiny surface. So you can just kind of...
So are you going to work the whole roof, or are you just going to concentrate mostly where the Roofwalk is going to cover?
Well, I use a soft brush to kind of blend it a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to just do a little bit of generalized weathering. It can do more weathering later, but at least this way there'll be something underneath the Roofwalk.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like there's a big silver void, especially because this is a light colored car.
It'd be like a racing stripe or something.
Yeah. If it was a darker colored car, it might not show so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've finished doing some simple weathering on the roof, and now I need to glue on the Roofwalk. And what I'm going to try to do is put a little tiny dab of CA glue on the top of each of these risers. But not too much because I don't want it to dribble down onto the roof of the car.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to do it really carefully.
Probably have to do it pretty quickly too, I would imagine, because you don't want the glue to dry on you.
Yeah, you can't wait too long. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to glue the Roofwalk on. And the only thing to remember about this is that there are in this particular Roofwalk, there's little score marks on the top.
Yep.
And the bottom is basically blank. And I also tried to line up the supports with the seams.
Right? You can see that.
Yeah.
They're like little solid pieces across it.
So you want to have it centered front to back and also side to side. And once it is, you just press it down until it dries.
Now, I've seen Dan do this before, and it's important to have all your fingers down just like that. I've noticed when he did it before, because if you don't hold your fingers down on it, it may pop up and not glue all the pieces down, or the full length of it.
So these supports are a little trickier. Basically, need to put a little bead of glue on the top of it, right on here, and then a couple little spots of glue on the back side of these two prongs, and it's going to slip under the Roofwalk and sit against the roof.
Right, so
sides of the roof like that.
The glue sticks to the underside of the Roofwalk then.
Right. So I'll go ahead and put some glue on it.
And you're going to put one of these on each end, right?
Right.
That's what I thought. I vaguely remember this from when we did the detailing and weathering rolling stock videos. If I remember correctly, the little diamond, or there's a little platform that goes on top of that, right?
Right.
Okay.
But you need to put the support on first.
Yeah, of course.
Try to line it up.
That's perfect.
Okay, so now I need to push this part up.
Yeah, very delicate work.
Yeah, and try not to... It's a little tricky to keep this part down and keep this part in contact with the top.
Yeah. This is that part I was just talking about?
Yeah, so this part just basically glues on top of here. The important thing to remember is that there are 3 holes in here that are larger than the other holes, and those go toward the corner of the car because there's going to be a grab iron in there.
Oh, right, that curved one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
it's
L
kind of
shape.
an L-shaped grab iron. So I'm going to use my brass wire applicator and just run a little bead of glue on the top of this.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how much of this I remember just from watching it on those other videos.
Yeah.
So in case anybody watching doesn't know what I'm talking about, we have several commercially available DVDs about detailing and weathering, just like what you're seeing on this video. And they're just like this. They are just as in depth, maybe a little bit more so as what this model building start to finish does.
So obviously you can't press down too hard because if you do, you'll break the support underneath.
Yeah.
But I try to make it so that you can't feel much of a seam right here because sometimes this piece will want to overlap the roof walk.
Yeah.
And that's not how it's supposed to be. So this feels pretty smooth.
It's kind of supposed to be flush up to it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It just butts up against it. Okay, so the last thing on the roof walk for the moment is the supports on the end. And I've painted the back black because that's going to get buried underneath the roof walk and it'll be hard to get to later.
Is it back in black?
No. Anyway, like I said before I'm just ignoring you. Like I said,
I know, I noticed.
Like I said before, I didn't drill holes. I'm just going to glue this on. Put a little bit of glue on this part and then a little bit on each end there. And then just glue this between the roof walk and the car body. Now that the roof walk is attached, I need to make some grab irons for the corners. I'm going to use some 010 phosphor bronze wire and just bend it to shape.
Could you use brass if you had it?
Yeah, either brass or phosphor bronze. I like those two because they're soft and pretty easy to work with. I would avoid stainless steel wire because it makes a nice little lancet to poke your finger.
Yeah, but I bet you could poke your finger with this stuff too if you're not careful.
You can, but it's a lot harder to do. Anyway, I put a little 90-degree bend in one end of it, and then I'm going to insert that into one of these 3 holes in the top.
Oh, I see what you're doing. That's going to be your template, isn't it?
Right. And then I'm going to bend it at this hole, and then I'll bend it down to fit in that hole. So it's going to make an L shape, basically.
Yeah, with little parts that stick into the holes. So that's a good trick. Somebody watching right now is going, "Oh yeah, I never thought about that before." You know who that is, right? It's me.
Right. So, and I'm just kind of using this as a guide to know where to bend it. I just take my time and make sure that I get it right. The nice thing too with this stuff, either brass or phosphor bronze, is that if you make a mistake and one part ends up a little bit too long or something, you can usually rebend it. So I put a little dab of CA glue on either end, and I'm just going to put it in these holes. I'm going to check the spacing just using a piece of 030 square styrene, and it should just fit under it. I'm not sure if that's the exact correct distance or not, but it looks right. So,
as long as it looks good enough for you.
I think the most important thing is to make sure that the distance is the same so that it's not like looking like it's drooping or something.
Yeah, right. And plus, you wouldn't want it to be touching in the bent piece, right? I mean, that would look kind of dumb.
No, because we need to add there's supposed to be a support in the corner. That's what that other hole is for.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have to bend that.
Oh, okay.
So you could use something like an eye bolt for this, but I found that it's just as easy to bend a little corner support yourself. So I have another piece of 010 phosphor bronze wire, and I'm just going to grip the end of it a little bit like that and bend it over.
Just make a right angle.
Yeah, just a little tiny one. And then I'm going to grip it like this and continue the bend around a little. Sometimes it takes a couple of tries, but what I'm trying to do is make a little hook shape out of it.
I thought it was worth getting a real close-up of this so you can see the hook that was created in the wire.
Yeah. The idea is that's going to loop over the corner of the bent grab iron that I put on the top.
Oh, I see. So the part that's on the elongated or the post end is going to stick into that hole that you were talking about? in the corner.
The hook goes over the wire.
The hook goes over the bent wire,
and
the post goes in the hole.
Right.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
So again, I thought that having an ultra close up would be good to show exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So there's the 3 holes.
Right.
And there's the bent ones on the ends, and the one there in the middle is what you just put on.
Right. And one of the advantages of using something like this as opposed to an eye bolt is the eye bolt actually has to be threaded onto the grab iron.
Yeah.
And that means you got to get all 3 things in the
lined
holes
up
all at the same time.
Yeah.
And remember that the eye bolt's going to be sitting there dangling and moving the whole time. It's really hard to do. This allows you to put the grab iron on first and then put the little corner piece on later. Remember, too, that when I paint this, it's going to gain a slight bit of thickness because the paint itself is going to add to the diameter of the wire.
Yeah, but it's so much more to scale, you know, and that's another advantage to using thin wire like this.
Right. So this is probably a good place to stop for now. Next time we'll come back and do some of the end details and also paint some of these details that I've put on.